Well, g'day and welcome to another edition of Legends with Bevo. Today we're joined by a man who's doing great things in the world of badminton. He's a development officer and sports coordinator for Badminton SA, and he's got a very interesting story to tell as well. It's been an interesting last 12 months, shall we say. Callum Dunk, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Bevo. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
You too, mate. Your role as a development officer and sports coordinator, tell us all about that. What's that involved?
Yeah, so at Badminton, South Australia, I'm the development officer and schools coordinator. So basically my job is to look after all of the participation here in South Australia in metro and regional areas. So I do coordinate all of our school bookings through the Sporting Schools program and basically look after regional trips, school holiday clinics and coaching courses as well.
Wonderful. And you've had as I said before, you've had an interesting 12 months, or we've had a very interesting last few months, but obviously more in terms of the last 12 months for you, because you got your dream job at Port Adelaide, and you were luckily able to still keep your job at Badminton SA, which is great. But talk us through what happened there with Port Adelaide.
Yeah, it was obviously a pretty sort of whirlwind 6 months. I suppose towards the end of last year, I was coming to the end of my tertiary education at Flinders University. So I studied a Bachelor of Sport, Health, Physical Activity, as well as a Bachelor of Business Marketing. And in my early years of university, I was doing some volunteering for Port Adelaide in the community department. And then I suppose towards the end of 2019, Port came to me with an opportunity to work and live in Hangzhou in China, which is about 45 minutes out of Shanghai by train. And that was to run the Power Footy program. So Power Footy is, I suppose, an education program designed to develop education relationships between Australia and China. It's basically also about trying to get Chinese sponsorships as well for the club. Obviously, the Port's experiment to China has been quite successful in the 3 years that it was running. Unfortunately, those plans may be put on hold, but I'm probably not qualified to speak about that one. So I was lucky enough to get the opportunity, and I was very thankful to Port Adelaide for sorting me out on that one. But unfortunately, a week before I was meant to leave, the club gave me a call and said, we're unable to send you due to COVID-19. Obviously, the virus was very, I suppose, small in scale and was basically just in China at that point. So it was obviously just a safety concern. I was lucky enough to spend a couple of months working 3 days a week at Port Adelaide. So that allowed me to work in the China team as well as get some experience in the community team, which was absolutely tremendous. Getting to work with the likes of Xavier Dersma, Connor Rosie, delivering programs in school, as well as, Russell Ebert, who worked at the club for, he's been at the club for 50 years. So to, work with the guys like that, pretty amazing opportunity. Unfortunately, after the AFL decided to suspend the season, a lot of AFL employees lost their jobs, and I unfortunately was one of those people. Obviously, pretty gutted about that, but obviously trying to put all my energy into making badminton bigger and stronger than ever here in South Australia.
Yeah, well done. And you've also started something as well, which is Sports Isolated, which is a little bit similar to what I do, where you chat to past and present sports people and people doing great things around the community. Talk us through that, mate.
Yeah, I suppose when I lost my job at Port, I kind of didn't want to sit on the couch playing PlayStation all day, feeling sorry for myself. I suppose I took a little bit of inspiration from you, Bevo, and I started a vodcast on YouTube and Facebook called Sports Isolated. So obviously it's great to interview athletes, but I suppose I wanted to highlight people who work in the sports industry behind the scenes and don't get the recognition they deserve. There's some fantastic sports administrators out there. It's obviously great to, I suppose, keep those contacts and relationships with people in the sports industry, because it's obviously a very small industry here in South Australia, and you know, anything that you can do to make yourself better during this tough time is going to, you know, go a long way to, you know, making sure I have a sustainable career in the sports industry, hopefully.
Well, I'm still waiting for my phone call, mate. I'm hoping it'll be in the next couple of weeks. Or
Settle down, Bevo. All in good time.
No, all jokes aside, mate, you're doing a great job. Now, speaking of a great job, you mentioned at the start that you're involved with doing some really good stuff with schools, and you had a really good result from 2018 versus 2019 in terms of the amount of participation of students involved with badminton. Talk us through this.
Yeah, so I suppose having my role at Badminton SA is a pretty unique position whilst I was studying at university. I suppose it helps me to, elevate myself in the job market. But at Badminton SA in 2018, we visited 11 schools, and then in 2019 we were able to visit 34 schools. So that was basically triple participation rates in schools, which is obviously fantastic. The schools has been something I've been looking to improve since I started at Badminton SA, and obviously in 2019 we were able to get some fantastic results for the association, and that obviously credit goes to our casual coaches who helped me to deliver the programs in school. Wouldn't be able to do what I do without them, so thanks to those guys who are watching. In 2020, we were able to launch the SBS program, so our school participation strategy. So it's basically designed to give kids a taste of badminton in school with a fun, interactive, inclusive lesson, you know, playing lots of fun games, learning basic technique, and then obviously in the hopes that they could transition into one of our new after-school programs that we set up in term one. Unfortunately, those programs had to be put on hold due to COVID, but hopefully in the coming months as restrictions continue to ease, we can obviously, you know, get those programs back up and running and get as many kids on the court as possible. And
last year we had a really good tournament happening here in Adelaide. Unfortunately, obviously this year it's not going because of COVID, which is international tournament for badminton, which is a wonderful thing for South Australia. And this happened last year and in 2018 as well, and hopefully back again next year. Cal, tell us more about it.
Yeah, so the SA International is a tournament that Saba launched in 2018, in September 2018 at Titanium Security Arena, the former home of the 36ers. So, yeah, it was basically a tournament that was the second of 3 legs around Australia. First legs in Perth, second legs in Adelaide, and then the third legs in Sydney, moving on to the Australian Open, which is obviously the largest badminton tournament here in Australia. So we had a lot of players from around the world. You know, obviously badminton's really popular in the Asian countries, but we also had some people from the United States, the UK as well, obviously Chinese Taipei, so Taiwan, and then India and Sri Lanka as well. There was representatives from over 40 countries, so that was really great for us. And I suppose the plan was to continue growing this tournament over the years, obviously to make it financially sustainable for the association, as well as obviously generate a bit of media coverage as well around the sport, because badminton's the second most popular sport in the world, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So unfortunately, due to COVID and financial reasons, we've had to suspend the tournament, but I'm sure I speak on behalf of the association when I say we'd be, you know, looking to bring the tournament back in a future year and make it bigger and better than ever.
And in terms of, obviously you mentioned before, badminton's a very popular sport in other countries. Obviously Australia, it's a little bit harder because you've got, you know, your tennis, your cricket, basketball, footy, these other bigger sports that they're always competing with. What do you think we need to do here in Australia to make it popular and get more people involved in it, Cal?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Bevo. It's actually one of the questions I received in my job interview when I went for the role at Badminton SA. I suppose sports like cricket, AFL, soccer, netball and basketball, they probably have those larger national bodies. So obviously, like Cricket Australia and the AFL have got lots of money. Well, normally have lots of money, but they're able to hand out bigger financial packages to the states, which allow them to run things like Auskick and school programs that are sort of nationally funded. We do receive some support from Badminton Australia, but it's not a massive amount compared to those larger sports. So I know obviously the mainstream sports that obviously tend to have that media coverage get a lot more money, but a lot of smaller sporting organisations obviously struggle to get that funding. So we're obviously heavily reliant of the Office of Rec and Sport here in South Australia, which allows us to go out and do regional trips. Also helps fund my job to grow the sport here in South Australia. So as much if the association can get as much money as they can, we're going to produce some really good results here.
And sort of, where's your passion for badminton come from? Is it something you've sort of always played as a kid? And I guess, what encouraged you to go for your current job you're in now?
Yeah, I suppose when I first got my role at Badminton SA, I had very little badminton experience. I played in high school in my PE lessons on a Friday afternoon, and it was a sport that I always considered, just a good social sport. Didn't really ever take it too seriously. And then obviously once I got my position, I needed to learn pretty quickly, the rules of the game, the technique as best as I could. Not the world's best badminton player, but I'm obviously trying to get better. So I had to obviously do the coaching course to learn all the proper the movements and the technique, and then obviously translated into me doing tutor education, which allows me to teach the shuttle time course here in South Australia. So at the moment, I'm the only tutor here in South Australia. Any shuttle time coaching course will be done by me. We're obviously hoping to have some coaching courses at some point later in the year, which are obviously a bit higher for those players who want to take their coaching to the next level. So it's been a good professional development experience for me, not having much experience in the sport, and then obviously having to learn really quickly has been something been a really good experience.
Yeah, it's one of those sports. I remember playing it in high school as well, and I got so frustrated with it. It's a bit like golf, because sometimes you'll do this really good shot and think, oh yeah, I've got this game down pat, and then you'll just stuff one up, and it's so frustrating. Do you feel my pain?
Yeah, I know what you mean, Bevo. It's obviously requires a lot of technique, and if you want to be good at it, it's going to take a lot of time. It's such a technical sport, but it's obviously a really fun sport to play, and it doesn't take as long as something like cricket. So there are some Saturday afternoons I'd rather be in a badminton hall rather than standing out in the field for 6 hours. So yeah,
you and me both with that one. And in terms of down south, which is where I live in Morpheville at the moment, if I'm wanting to get into badminton, or I've got some friends and family that want to get involved, I heard you were saying the other day that Noarlunga is looking to get involved with the centre down there, and there's one at Seaview as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so one of the things I'd like to do in my role over the next 6 to 12 months, hopefully, is to establish a club down south as well as out north. Obviously those two areas have larger populations. But obviously talking about down south at the moment, we'd love to get an after school program going at Noarlunga, or obviously around that area. And then obviously it'd be great if we could build up a club down there. The more clubs that we have, the stronger that our competitions will be. Obviously, it's all good for people to have social hits, but ideally we want those players, still going to play for a club, as we want to make our competitions obviously a lot stronger. So in terms of clubs down south at the moment, there's Seaview Badminton Club, which is at Seaview High School. So yeah, I can certainly provide the information to you, Bevo, about where you want to go and have a hit. And, clubs are always looking for new members to join, that's for sure.
Wonderful. Well, Callum Dunk, it's amazing chatting to you today, mate. Well done on everything that you're doing with Badminton SA. Unfortunately, sorry to hear about the job in Port Adelaide, but you're a great lad. You got your head held high, and you're certainly heading for bigger and better things, mate. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Bevo. Much appreciated. Take care, mate.
You too. Thanks a lot, buddy.